The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
Sometimes I feel like my shadow's casting me. Some days the sun don't shine. Sometimes I wonder what tomorrow's gonna bring when I think about my dirty life and time. One day I came to a fork in the road, and I just couldn't go where I was told.
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 70, and our guest is John McEuen. John is a songwriter, author, and one of the best banjo players in the world. He is most known for his work with the legendary Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, with whom he has won Grammys, become part of the first American band to play in the Soviet Union, and broke all kinds of musical barriers. Just an incredible life this man has lived, and I'm so excited for y'all to hear our conversation. You can find all things John at johnmcEuen.com. Everyone, it is such an honor to bring you my conversation with John McEuen.
Make up her mind when I tell her about my dirty life and time. Yeehaw!
Also, I've made progress in your book, so I'm excited to hear some of those stories. So if I can just get you talking about stories, that would be really cool, because I just read the one, there's a story about you're with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and you're playing in, I think it was a festival in Ohio, and a huge star-studded lineup. Willie was there, if I remember this story correctly. Hank Jr. was there. There's all these big names, and a woman began dancing sans clothes in the middle of the crowd.
That story about that girl at the concert, that was really kind of embarrassing for her. But what it was is we were up on stage playing Battle of New Orleans, and this girl out in the audience about 150 feet out, maybe no, 100 feet out, naked, totally naked, in the middle of a country music crowd of maybe 30,000 people. And she was swinging her hair. You would have thought it was Woodstock, but it wasn't. It was only about 8 years ago. And she had these people kind of giving her a wide circle, but then they started closing in and trying to stop her. And she reached down between her legs and pulled out the only weapon she had. And it was the wrong time of the month, and she started swinging it around and around, and people were getting away from they didn't want to. It's kind of embarrassing, that my book, The Life I Picked, is not all like this, but this was. So she was separating the crowd, but then her ammunition started drying up, and when it dried up, the crowd closed in around her and picked this naked woman up on crowd surfing style and got her moving towards the front of the stage and dumped her over the security fence and fired our guns, and the British kept coming. it's going on, the Gulf of Mexico, and they dumped her over the fence, and the music was hot, the day was warming up, but the show was hot, and it was like the security guards came and moved her away.
Oh, that's great, man. There's so many.
I didn't write home about that. I didn't even tell anybody.
Well, there's so many great stories in the book. The book's The Life I've Picked, and I've been reading it. It's really wonderful, and you've lived such a life. I mean, you've picked such a life, John. And I want to talk about the book and how it came together.
Sure.
What first of all, I guess, what was the inspiration to write it, and then what was your process like?
Well, it was a situation where I was doing 95% of the interviews with the Dirt Band because one guy, the game is on, I can't miss the game, or no man, I'm really tired, or I've just ordered some food, or I want to go eat, or I don't do one of the guys I would rarely take to an interview. He had the same 3 answers every time he went, and there was more to talk about. I love meeting people. It's good to find the people that are playing your records. So in the course of that event, I did about 10,000 interviews.
Wow.
Maybe 9,400, but I did another 2,000 in the last 10 years on my own, for my own shows, solo shows. And, if you're out of the road working, and it's 1977, and you're doing 10 dates, each one would have at least 2 interviews. So there's 20 dates. And one's a radio, one's a newspaper. So the radio people kept saying, oh man, you ought to have those stories written down. You ought to write those stories down. They said that for 20 years, starting around 1970. And I didn't have that many stories, but I did have some.
By then you already had a bunch, really.
Well, by 1980 and 1985, I had a bunch, and I wrote them down. And in the 90s, I kept writing. Quite a thing to be in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and to leave. Well, I had to leave. I was getting divorced. I had 6 kids. I was blaming it on the band, which was partially true. And the night, maybe you got to that part. The night I separated from my wife, this is in the 80s, I said goodbye to the kids and said, I got to go live somewhere else. And I walked into a grocery store about 5 hours later because I was hungry. And right when I walked in the store, Mr. Bojangles started. and I went, this is going to be good, a book someday. And when I'm going the next little while to go pick up my kids, Dave Mason's yelling at me, there ain't no good guys, there ain't no bad guys, there's only you and me, and I said, well, with tears in my eyes, I said, this will be good in the book. So the book started coming together, and right now it's at a happy space because, the book's at a happy space. I may not be. My brother, who has been a mentor, fellow musician, manager, photographer, record producer, all those things to me, passed away a few days ago. And I'm trying to deal with that. But you want to hear about my book and my life that I describe in it, he's a big part of that. Pops up every now and then. I'm
so sorry for your loss, John. And if we need to reschedule, man, we can absolutely reschedule.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I have been writing. It's very strange because I've written a bunch of obituaries for people, and I'm writing this one.
Oh, wow.
But Bill was a record producer, television producer, film producer, studio owner. He works with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Steve Martin, Pee Wee Herman, Steve Landesberg, a band called Starwood, a band called Louisiana's LaRue, Robert Schimmel, the Sunshine Company, and the Earle Allman Brothers. And he didn't just work with them; he managed them. He got them record deals. So that's a good thing to speak about proudly. But you have other questions, and I just wanted to mention him in doing that.
Yeah, well, I would love to talk about whatever you feel comfortable talking about when it comes to your brother, just because you do talk about him a lot in the book. And so when I saw that news, my heart went out to you. The heart still goes out to you, because he was obviously such a impressive person too. It seems like the way I'm really touched by the reverence with which you seem to hold each other in your account in the book. It seems like you have quite the mutual respect for each other, and that's a huge part of what helped you be successful.
I'd go over and visit him in Kona, where he lived over the last 10 years, and we'd go to a little city street fair or something. We'd walk up to somebody he'd been doing business with over the last few months. He'd, this is John McEuen, world's greatest banjo player. He was very proudly always, Bill, don't brag about me like that,
Yeah.
He liked making me semi-embarrassed. And yes, he was very supportive. We had a great time together. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, I love it. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that whatever you're comfortable talking about in terms of that, I definitely want to hear about, and I want to hear about whatever you want to talk about too. I mean, that's part of what I love about this show is it's free flowing on purpose, right? So I certainly have questions written down, but wherever we go, we go. So we can
go.
Yeah, so we can go wherever we want to go when it comes to that. With the book, and it's really kind of an intimate account in many ways. Like you're really open in it, and I'm curious about how comfortable you are being so open to. I mean, you're opening yourself up to whoever picks the book up, right? So how comfortable you are.
I just tried to tell what I saw, what I experienced from my viewpoint, the Dirt Band stuff that's in there, the things about Nitty Gritty Dirt Band with which I had spent 50 years. And, I tried to look at the good side. I'll tell you the truth. I finished the manuscript, and I did a search in my computer and for the word prick. I went and took those out. And asshole, I took that out. They didn't need to be there, in referencing other people in the group, because everybody thought each other was that. At different times, everybody would, except Richard Hathaway, a bass player we had with us for a while. He was always nice. But he only lasted 3 years, darn it. But that was
no place 70s. For a nice man in the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Yeah, you're going to get fired. You're too nice. But in doing that, I didn't tell everything in my life, but everything I talked about, I was truthful. And trying to be. My editor helped me a lot. Steve Martin was reading my stories. I'd send him one, I'd send him another. A month later, I'd send another one. And he said, you have a book here, but you need an editor. And, well, why do I need an editor? I can edit. And then I got an editor, and I can see how he can take 700 words and make it 500 words and not miss anything. Just by sentence shuffling and putting so he edited it. And then when I got the deal with the publishing company, I had a grammar editor, a punctuation editor, a fact-checking editor.
A prick and asshole editor?
No, those were those. But, then it was done.
And for folks listening, when you say Steve Martin, you mean the Steve Martin who you're childhood friends with?
Yeah. Well, if you're a child at 16, yes.
You're a child at 16. I see.
We met. We were children at 16.
I think everybody's a child at 16, is what I was saying.
I've seen some 40-year-old children.
That's the truth. That's the truth. I may be guilty of it. I'm coming up on 40. I may be guilty of being a child every once in a while.
No. Well, yeah, Steve Martin and I met when we were 16 in Disneyland. We were both trying to get a job at the magic shop. Then we got our dream job. At 16 years old, we're working Disneyland. He was already working there as a stock boy in Adventureland, but he wanted to do magic in front of people. And it wasn't a performance situation, really, but you performed all day long. You tried to sell magic tricks, and you had to do them good enough to sell them. Mm. You couldn't screw them up. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, let me do it again, No. And they weren't hard, some of them. Some of them were. And it was fun.
Well, in that story, it kind of comes out...
Like the Svengali decks, for instance. There's a deck of cards called Svengali, Svengali deck of cards. And it had a couple of tricks you do with it. And I sold 152 decks one day. I held the record. And it was like, Steve, how many Svengali decks do you do? I did 140. I said, I did 152. Aha. Go ahead.
Well, in that story comes out something about you, and that is your work ethic. Like, you worked to get good at those tricks so you could sell more of those decks, and that's a theme that comes out throughout your book. It continues to come up that you're constantly working. So where does that work ethic, what is the origin of that work ethic?
I had to sell more decks. What do you mean? I don't...
I mean, in general, right? So, like, you've been working really hard your whole life, John. And so what is it? Where does that come from?
Doing jobs that aren't called work. I don't have it. I don't have a job. Some guy wanted me to call him today to talk to him. Is that a job? I don't know. I'm talking to you about what I do and what I make. And who do I work for? I work for people that are out there that hopefully will buy something that I write or play or put together. And I think it's really good stuff. I've gotten a couple Grammys and an Emmy nomination and a bunch of little awards that tell me I'm doing the right thing. But getting the word John McEuen out there, and check out my album, Made in Brooklyn, that I did 2 years old now.
That's beautiful.
One of the best ever. Pardon?
It's a beautiful record.
Oh, well, thank you. Now, if I could get the people that reviewed it to each sell 2 copies, and then get those, do it like a pyramid thing.
You're not trying to go Bernie Madoff on us, are you?
It would go over 6,000 or 8,000 units that it sold. It's the absolute gorgeous record that I poured my heart into, that I still try and tell people, pick up Made in Brooklyn. It's all recorded with one microphone, and I use a bunch of people, like, well, for those that are listening, David Bromberg and Carter Cash, Jay Ungar, the fiddle player, Andy Gessling, the multi-instrumentalist from the band Railroad Earth, Martha Redbone, John Cowland from the Newgrass Revival, Steve Martin. He plays on a what's the guy? Oh, come on, John. What's the song? A Warren Zevon song, Excitable Boy. Matt Kartsonis, who's a guy that works with me. He's a great singer and a fun guy. I talked to him last night. Anyway, so when I was working in Disneyland, I didn't want to work as a stock boy. I wanted to fool people. I wanted to do magic. I wanted to keep track of the stock. I got to order some more barf, the plastic barf. I got to order some more of these and that, and now I got to go do this show. I used to complain when I only got 50 hours a week. My average was 50 in the summer was 55 and 60. 1 week I worked 92 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, you should have seen the check. The check was $121. Yeah. I went and I went and cashed it all in $2 bills, except one, and that was fun. But anyway, I was basically, I've been trying to have fun my whole life.
Oh, that's
and
great.
if you're doing something that's fun and it's something you choose to do, that you want to make a living out of it, just get it out there. Do it enough. Hopefully, if but you have to produce something. I do know that.
Right.
And you have to, if you get known for producing something, you have to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and some part of the production too, the fact that you're in this world from the 60s all the way through today, where you're in music and you're around these incredible musicians. I mean, your book is full of these just wild stories about, Gary Busey playing drums on a session and all these things. Well, yeah. That like, go ahead. Sorry.
But see, he was just Gary Busey. He was Teddy Jack Eddy, his nickname. Yeah. He hadn't done. He was on his way to Austin, Texas, to start the Buddy Holly movie, which started his film career. And he was a drummer that was becoming an actor. And he was a good drummer. And we were recording in Leon Russell's house, which is pretty far out in itself. But
yeah.
I'd known Leon since 1966.
Wow.
And it was fun. I couldn't believe it. Leon Russell's house in the basement. The studio was in the basement. It was a big mansion. They had to tilt it on its side about 20 degrees and build the studio underneath it and then drop it back down on top of it. And he was in his heyday.
Yeah.
And, hey, Leon, can I use your phone? I got a call from, man, there's a phone out down the hall there. I go down the hall and there's a payphone. He knew musicians.
Because that's back when it would cost to call long distance.
I spent $3 on a call home. He didn't spend time.
It seems like you and Leon, from what I tell in the book, though, you guys really you guys seem like friends. You seem as if you and Leon Russell. It seems like you got along really well.
I was his favorite banjo player, and he was my favorite piano player. And yeah. Oh, yeah, we encountered each other at least 25 times, Mm-hmm. I hired him for 5 different shows, and let's see. And in addition, I sat in with him on another 5 or 6 or 7 shows, played 3 or 4 songs. And it was really fun. It was always fun. He did not stop. He made it rock. I played fiddle and banjo, and it was really fun. I felt like I was a little part of some of that mystique of the 70s. And I was like Forrest Gump with a banjo or a fiddle. I was just going along. Well, it's my turn. I better make it look good,
Wow, that's a really good analogy. Like Forrest Gump with the banjo. Like you're in everything, right? So some of those stories, like, and again, for folks listening, the book is absolutely worth your time. It's really a delight. But some of those stories, yeah, it's just like, it's so interesting how many people you were able to. So how many people who were even heroes of yours that you were able to charm into, or because of your talent they wanted to be a part of these projects that you did? But then you also talk about your perpetual insecurity at some point in the book. And so how do you balance those? How do you end up going, I'm going to go and ask, Roy Acuff to be on my, in my life or whatever?
Earle Acuff for us.
Yeah, and also Earle, for that matter.
Well, Earle, yeah, okay. Well, I'd gotten to know him for 6 months, and one night I said, I got my nerve up. Mr. Scruggs, Earle, can I ask you a question? I was wondering, Earle, do you think, would you Would you? Yes, John. What is it? I said, would you record with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band? And he said, I'd be proud to.
Oh my gosh.
And I went, okay. Well, we got the first one, and a week later, I asked Doc Watson the same question, and I said, we're doing an album with Earl Scruggs. We want you to be part of it. We weren't doing an album. I was there by myself, but that wasn't too far off of a line of bullshit, but it was, excuse me, are we on radio?
No, and you can say whatever you want.
Okay, well, it wasn't too far off the mark, but he got on the phone with my brother. They talked for 15 minutes, and Bill McEuen, my brother, put Doc together, and then I talked to Bill later. He says, I'm going to get Merle Travis, see if he wants to do it. And then I asked Earle if he'd get Maybelle Carter. And 3 weeks after those questions were asked, the end of June, that's when we told the Dirt Band. And we're going to go to Nashville and record, because by 3 weeks in, Earle had gotten Jimmy Martin,
Wow.
or Louise got Jimmy Martin, his wife, Louise. And Earle had gotten Maybelle Carter and Vassar Clements and the bass player, and had set up a meeting with Acuff. And it was like, oh man, we're gonna record some music, And I knew all the music because that's what I was playing before the Dirt Band. I was playing bluegrass, Merle Travis, and stuff. And Jeff said, "Who's Jimmy Martin?" He's the best bluegrass singer in the world. Well, how come I've never heard of him? Because you don't listen to bluegrass. And now I hear Jeff talk about this album like, yeah, our heroes, our buddies, Jimmy Martin. It's like, well, like Jackson Brown's in the Dirt Band. Maybe Jackson would put that on his website, in his bio, his record discography. Oh, he didn't record with us. He only played 5 shows with the early band.
That is a pretty wild story, though. And that's right before he kind of broke, too, right? Before he kind of made it big.
2 years before he broke.
2 years, okay.
3. He was in the group 3 years before he had record success.
And did y'all record one of his tunes?
Oh, yeah. He was a great writer. He was a friend.
Right.
That he is a great writer is understood now.
Right.
But, we recorded 4 of them, I think. 3 at least.
Were you able to... Sorry.
Go ahead.
Were you able to recognize somebody like Jackson Brown, who's now... Everyone accepts that he's a great writer. Were you able to in the moment 2 years before he became Jackson Brown, were you able to recognize just how good he was in that moment?
Well, beyond like, hey, he's really good. No, you didn't go, my God, this guy's writing hit songs. Oh, that's going to be on the radio. It was, you had a job to do. You had to play that night. You had to get together. Oh, hey, did you hear Jackson's new song? No, I missed it. I was in the lobby or whatever. By lobby of the club. We weren't playing concerts. It was clubs. Every now and then a concert, 67, 68. And then you'd end up at the State Fair in Arizona, make a lot of money, and go home and play the Troubadour, And so Jackson was playing folk clubs, and you'd end up there sometimes. And then by 69, and the concerts started, there just weren't as many venues as there have been, now in the last 20 years. In L.A. in 1966, there was maybe 2.
Wow.
The Ice House and the Troubadour.
Wow.
And then, the Ash Grove. The Ash Grove was a folk music club. And that's now the Improv, the comedy room. And there wasn't even a comedy room.
Was a Whiskey A Go-Go still there?
Yeah, say there was a Whiskey A Go-Go, but that was a Whiskey A Go-Go.
Yeah.
They're going to have rock band and dance band and stuff like that.
Yeah.
you know, I went to see the Allman Brothers there when Bill brought them to, my brother Bill brought them to town. He got them a gig there, but they weren't the Allman Brothers. They were being called the Hourglass. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was an interesting time because they were just barely, I think they made $100 a piece, but it was an interim thing. It was scrambling. I don't know why these people did it. The Dirt Band was making maybe $150, $200 a week. Wow. Each, you know?
Yeah.
In 67, 68. And then we would make a record, and we get a couple thousand from that, but it had to last for 2 months, 3 months. And
you had kids pretty early.
No,
so
no
not at
kids.
that point? Okay.
1970, I was the first one to have kids.
Okay.
Have kid. But by 72, 73, we're in Colorado. The Uncle Charlie album, our fifth album.
Which is my favorite. It's so good.
Oh, it is. Good.
It's a favorite of yours, yeah. Of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Bands, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, well, it had House at Pooh Corner, some of Shelley's Blues, and Mr. Bojangles. 3 hits off of one album. Mm-hmm. That put us on the road, got the career going good, and then I asked Earle if he'd record. And since he said when he met me, "Hey, Earle, why'd you come see this band?" His son Gary was driving to the Opry with his family, and he said, "You know, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band's at Vanderbilt tonight. You guys want to go?" And Earle and everybody, "Oh yeah, I'd love to see them. They've got that Uncle Charlie album, you know."
Oh, cool.
And Earle had heard it. I'd recorded Randy Lynn Rag on that album. It was really lightning fast bluegrass tune. And I gotta say, yeah, I'd recorded Randy Lynn Rag, one of Earle's songs on that album. And I said, after introductions and some time, 15 minutes, I said, "Earle, why'd you want to come see us?" "Well, I just wanted to meet the boy who played Randy Lynn Rag the way I intended to."
Wow.
Oh, I'm going to use that for the rest of my life.
What a compliment. How do you react to compliments like that? That's a hell of an endorsement.
Well, it was a nice thing to say, and you're just saying that, but I did play it good. I played it in front of them, and with Gary and Randy Scruggs backing me up, and we burned it again. It was good. Wow. Earle sitting there 2 feet away. But I play better under a spotlight than I do with when I'm recording. If there's a red light on, I'll play better. If there's an audience, I can play better. It's I don't know why, but after all these years, I've found that out.
Yeah, that why was going to be my question. What do you think it is about that?
I don't know. Fear, maybe. Gary Scruggs told me, "I love to see you when you're improvising and you're trying to do something new, and I can tell you're going to screw up, and then you do something better than what you intended." I said, "You're the only guy that's ever caught that, Gary," and that's exactly right. I will think that I'm going to do something clever, and I go, "Oh no, I got to get out of it," and I'll get out of it with something better.
Oh, that's interesting. There seems like there's a good lesson there for performers in general, that maybe there's something to hold on to about the idea of if you're starting to go the wrong direction, almost chasing it, right? Almost chasing it in a different direction, or I don't know. Like, is there a lesson there?
Listen to the music, man. Don't try and plan it all out, but get it planned out enough that you can follow it for a while. There's some things that I play that are planned out completely, and I can execute them and stuff, but that's that fast improv type of deal.
Right.
And it happens more with a fiddle, I think. But anyway, next question.
Why more with the fiddle?
It's easier to stop and start. A banjo is, I don't know, maybe that's it, easier to stop. And so, it's easier to go, dang, ding, 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 ding. On the banjo, you can't go, dang, ding, ding, ding. It's like, what is it? You start playing there already. You got to go, diddle, 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 diddle. And
Speaking of fiddle, and you mentioned Vassar earlier, I have followed a lot of things he's been involved in for a long time, and he's kind of like one of the patron saints of Spirit of the Swanee Music Park, which is my favorite place on earth. And so I've always wondered what Vassar seems so revered by people who knew him. I always kind of wondered what it was like being around him.
Oh, it's like being around maybe a carpenter that could play great piano. Or maybe it was like being around a normal guy that was a genius at something you had no idea. If you met Vassar, he would have been asking questions about you. Say, well, what do you do? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you sell potato chips? Okay. I've always liked potato. How long can they stay on them? And you ask him, oh, I play the fiddle. But he could play the fiddle so good, he could play things that even he couldn't play. I used him many times after the Circle album. He'd be out in the studio and he'd be ripping along on something that's kind of whatever. And I say, Vassar, how did you come here and listen to that? You come in the control room and I'd play the tape. I said, how did you do that? Dad, by him. I don't reckon how. What is that guy doing there? He didn't read music. He couldn't read a chart. He often didn't know what key he was in. But every now and then he'd say, this is in C, right? No, it's in D, Vassar. Oh, okay. But he played the way a guy that's a great singer can sing in the shower.
Wow.
They just go in and they sing. They don't know. He may not know music at all, but he knows the song.
Wow.
And Vassar played from the heart. I had him out in the studio one time. I put a chart in front of him, and he looked at it and says, what's that for? I said, oh, it's just I'm passing out chord charts. He took it and turned it upside down. He goes, looks better now. He learned the song and he played it. And, he had so many notes in him. They would just come out at the right time.
Wow. Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. I've always wondered, Swanee is the happiest place on earth for me. And have you ever played there? Spirit of the Swanee Music Park in Live Oak?
Yep.
With the band or by yourself?
No, me and Jimmy Everson from the Dirt Band as a duo. We played there one time. I don't think I played there solo, but the other one I played, the Florida Folk Festival down the road from there. That's not the same venue, I don't think.
No. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is so fun, Dan. Thank you so much for doing this. This is so much fun. You've got a lot of really cool projects also kind of in the works. You've got the coffee table book about your trip to the Soviet Union as the first band to play, American band to play in the Soviet Union. That one, can you talk about how that came together? Because that sounds like a really cool, exciting project.
Well, let's say you went to Russia for a month and you did 4 music school lectures and met a bunch of people and played 28 shows and had your photographer friend go along to shoot 200 usable good pictures. Why not put it together?
Right.
Why did it take so long? Well, I don't know. I didn't think of it. That's a COVID time project, and I go, that made it come up. Well, I'm in the house. What are my assets? I never could go through all the Russian pictures. It was too depressing.
Mm.
I could get to some of them. I could use some of them. I could, but I had 1,700 black and whites, and half of them were out of focus, or half of them were no good, and they're on disc, and I have to. Anyway, so I go dig into it. Oh my God, that's a good one. Oh, this is a good one. I need this now. Then the other project is the Mountain Whippoorwill illustrated children's book. Will be fun next year early. It comes out. The poem I've told since the 70s. Up in the mountains, it's lonesome all the time. Up in the mountains, it's lonesome for a child. Whippoorwills call as a saplin's wild. Up in the mountains in the fog, everything's as lazy as an old hound dog. Now, I was born, anyway, it goes on to be an illustrated book that'll have music with it also. The tablature on how to play what I'm playing on the banjo, and an introduction by Steve Martin, and a foreword by me, and the illustrated story, which is kind of really cool. I've got the finished book, and I can't wait to get it out.
Oh, fun.
It'll have a audio version of me doing it, and then an audio version of just the instrumental without my voice. So a father, mother can sit there on the bed and read it to their kid with the music going behind it, if they care to. Or the kid can look at it and practice, and
Right.
And then there's the 50-year book of the Circle Be Unbroken album. The Circle album is going to be 50 in 2022.
Wow.
And the Will the Circle Be Unbroken album has been number one. Well, right today I think it's number 1, 3, and 5 on 3 different Amazon charts. And I got to get that 5 back up to 2 or something. So if you're listening to this, go out and buy a Circle Be Unbroken. Will the Circle Be Unbroken? Just put it on Amazon and look at the top of that chart. And it's a great album. It's the Dark Side of the Moon. It should be called the Dark Side of the Banjo, maybe. That's the one we were talking about earlier that features Roy Acuff, Mother Maybelle Carter, and Merle Travis, Doc Watson, Pastor Clements, Jimmy Martin, Earl Scruggs, and a few Nashville pickers, and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which was Les Thompson, Jim Ibbotson, and Jimmy Fadden, Jeff Hanna, and me, John McEuen. And it was 34 songs recorded in 6 days, and finished.
Wow.
And it's in the Library of Congress and the Grammy Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And
It led to some cool stuff for you too. Like it led to you staying at Johnny Cash's place in New York, right? Or wherever it was. Like it led to some other connections, if I understand it correctly. Like those relationships and that record built other opportunities for you.
Well, just follow the line, John. It was laying out, and by the 80s, 20 years later, I'm out playing, and Marty Stewart is playing with Johnny Cash as a musician because he fulfilled one of the conditions that you had to have if you're going to play with Cash. You had to be shorter than him.
It's a fun detail from the book. I had no idea that was true.
Oh, is that in the book?
It is, yeah.
Oh, hope I don't get busted for. Well, he's dead. Yeah. Anyway,
Marty's shorter than most people, though.
Marty Stewart.
Yeah.
I'm paying $50 a night, and he's playing with me because he loves it, and I'm covering his expenses, and he's making a little money. And I said, look, I'll pay you $100 a night for this weekend I've got coming up in the Northeast, if you can get the Cash apartment in New York for a couple nights, because that'll save me $400. No, it'll save me like $300. And I went to pick him up in Poughkeepsie, which is funny in itself. picking his feet in Poughkeepsie. And I sat in with Cash that night.
Wow.
And Marty said, "Don't let it go to your head sitting in with Cash, because I've been with him 2 years, and so far I've seen a couple people sit in, a drunk and an 8-year-old girl." But Cash said yes, so we got the apartment.
Wow, that's so fun.
And I flipped a coin to see who was going to get the bedroom. Now, Marty didn't know I'd worked at the magic shop. I knew I wasn't going to lose. I made him think he saw a heads, and he goes, "I'll take heads." Well, it was a tail. And it was tails. And I got the bedroom. Ha, ha, ha. And should I go on?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good... The next thing that transpires is pretty good.
I got the bedroom, and we're getting ready for bed. Marty's in the living room watching TV. I'm in the bedroom, and there's this armoire there. And I open it. Wow, there's 2 men in black suits and cleaner's plastic. And, oh, that's June Carter's nightgown. A nice little, nice long nightgown. She's a tall woman. I held it up to me, and it's like, yeah, that's really nice. June Carter's nightgown. It fit like a glove. And I couldn't resist being able to say, I wore June Carter's nightgown.
Oh, that's great, man.
And I went out to I didn't think of the consequence, the potential threat of Cash finding out or anything.
Yeah.
I went out to the living room, and Marty's watching TV, and he is not one who moves fast. And I put my leg up over him and says, "Hey, big boy, when's the fun?" Because he looked at the nightgown and looked at me and yelled and jumped up and ran into the wall. And so that was fun.
That was fun.
Most of the fun I've had on the road has been away from the Dirt Band.
Oh, interesting.
And I found that interesting in reading this.
Yeah.
But that's even away if it's during the day, But, if the Dirt Band was on the road, I'd go away, or I'd go sit in with somebody, or I'd go do an interview. I'd do a lot of interviews to get away from everybody thinking they're special or heavy or I've got a hit record or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy out there. I'm playing music. I'm playing music that should put me in the best Holiday Inn in your town. But and I'm pretty good at it. But to have it go to your head. And Jimmy Fadden didn't play on "Buy From Me the Rain" or "Mr. Bojangles," but you would have thought he wrote them.
Well, how much of that?
I did, but
how much of that relationship, the struggles of that relationship, was that those guys were on drugs or boozing and you were sober? How much was that with like their behavior because of their substance use?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Substance abuse went away by 1988, I think, or 90 or something, and everybody's been clean for a long time. But sometimes it would just amplify what was already there.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it would just whatever.
Yeah.
It's just Fadden called me today to say condolences about my brother. First time I've talked to him in 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And Jeff called, and I've been emailing him every now and then because we have business things to do.
Yeah.
But it was nice.
Right.
Like, yeah. But nothing. It's a part of what I have done, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. A good part. And I I did some good things. I recorded 11 solo things within the structure of the band over the years. Opus 36, you know that song? Tung, teedalung, tung, tung, teedalung, ting.
Yeah.
The banjo song.
Uh-huh.
I recorded that. I recorded several things on subsequent albums, all in one take. I was the only one in the studio. Bill, my brother, producing Uncle Charlie, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in the studio at 11, and I should be done at 11:10.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do it like that, and I did.
Yeah.
And I was really proud to do that. And other things I did one take.
Right.
And it's not bragging. I knew the song. It was something I'd written.
Well, but you also did the work. You know, that's the other thing I think, again, that I want to come back to again and again about what I picked up from reading your book and in talking to you as well, is that you really are dedicated to your craft. That clearly comes through. Doing the work is very important to you, and so you're more likely to get that one take because you do the work.
I thought it was fear.
Well, John, this has been such a pleasure, man. We always end on what you're getting down on, like what kind of music you're listening to, or a film you've seen, or something you've read recently that excited you, or a painting, or anything you've been consuming art-wise that has you excited.
I hated that Frankie and Grace ended on Netflix.
I don't know that one.
Oh, it's a great show with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda.
Okay.
And it really is hilariously funny, as is Schitt's Creek. With Eugene Levy is one of my favorite comic actors.
Yeah.
And they put a great. Those people deserve those Emmys.
Yeah.
If they win constantly, but that's a great show.
Nice. Okay.
And Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
I've been watching a lot of Netflix this last several months.
Yeah.
Handmaid's Tale is happening right now.
Oh my gosh! Did you read the book Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood's book?
No, I just saw the series.
Man, book is
but I saw
devastating.
3 and 4 a night.
Yeah, it's so good.
I went through the whole thing over a period of about a month. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
And music, let's see. No one in particular, just I'm kind of on hold with that, trying to make sure I keep writing some new things. Music to me is like a magic trick, because I started doing magic first, maybe. I did magic stuff for a couple of years, and then music came along. But you practice to do a magic trick, you work on it in front of a mirror, you get it down, and then you have to go do it for somebody. Otherwise, it's nothing. Well, I got that one down. Okay, next.
Right.
And music has been the same. I'd sit around my house and play. Oh, that's a nice lick. I can't wait to. Oh, I'm not going to be going out for a while. Well, I'll try and keep myself in tune for it. I'll practice. But so I like what I play, and so nothing too much musical. Been reading a little bit more. Mary Trump's book is good.
Oh.
And that's finished. I've been reading a book about, Chinese medicine.
Oh, interesting.
RX China. Read that, and then ask yourself, what? What? You mean if our troops are out in the field and they get a certain type of infection, they have to order the drug from China?
Wow.
85% of our antibiotics come from China.
Wow.
90% of another thing. All the heparin, a blood thinner, most of that is from China. And so and that started around 2004, 2005, with Chinese getting control of pharmaceutical manufacture and not keeping up on the requirements. Just read RX China.
All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah. That sounds like something I'd be into.
I can read that kind of stuff for a half hour, but then I got to go do something else that's fun.
Right.
The responsibility to do things, find things, play things that are fun. Because people are waiting, I like to believe, people are waiting for them.
Right.
And somebody's got to do it. Maybe that part is me.
Right.
You know. Can you hear that?
I can, yeah.
Well, good.
Oh, nice.
Let me put this down here. Cable down here. I'm just trying to make something up for your show.
Oh, that's so fun. Oh, my gosh.
It's something I already made up. You can edit, right?
Yes.
Let me do that again. Can you hear the guitar okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, thank you, John. That was so beautiful.
That's the only thing I played all day, so thank you for making me do it.
Oh, it's so great, man. Oh, my gosh. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for the life that you've picked and for sharing those stories from it with us. John, I'm just so grateful for all of your time and your art, and really, really, really thankful for this conversation.
Well, I get a little lonely, don't you know what I mean? And I'm looking for a woman with low self-esteem who'll lay me out and ease my worried mind while I'm winding down my dirty life and time. I'm fiddle. She'll lay me out and ease my worried mind while I'm winding down my dirty life in times. Laid me out and eased my worried mind while I'm winding down my dirty life and time.
John McEuen, y'all. Thank you so much, John. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show. What a life that man has lived. Head over to johnmcEwen.com to keep up with all things John. Follow the Marinade on Instagram and Twitter or at marinadepodcast.com. If you really like what we're doing, check out our Patreon community, where for just a few bucks a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show's Jason Journey and our Patreon happy hours. It is a community where we celebrate creativity and encourage each other. If you can't swing it, just tell a friend about the show, give us a rating on your podcast app, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. All right, y'all. It's time for what I'm getting down on, the segment of the show where I talk about the art that is inspiring me at the moment. Stephanie Lambring, y'all. Look that up if you haven't. Shout out to Ben over at Records Revisited, the Records Revisited podcast, for this recommendation. The record's called Autonomy. It is devastating. Make sure you're in the right emotional space before you listen to Stephanie Lambring's Autonomy. It feels like a good therapy session. Do it. Listen to the record. It's beautiful. I can't say enough about it, and I'm 100% going to reach out to her and see if we can get her on the show. I have a feeling we'd have a lot to talk about. I've also been heavy into Will Kimbrough. I've listened to his music for a long time and wanted to catch up with him at Swanee a few years ago, but I just was too busy at that time. I fortunately had too many things lined up, but he has a new record on the way, and it is wonderful. Will was gracious enough to agree to do the Marinade, and so we will be chatting on Election Day, which I did not think about. I already sent in my ballot. Did you? I hope you did. If you didn't, I hope that you're voting early and safely. And if you didn't do that, I hope you're showing up on Election Day and getting these motherfuckers out of office. Please vote, everybody. But we are going to talk on Election Day, which is kind of wild. So I'm sure we'll mostly focus on the weather. One thing that I've done for a long time that I started doing again, and this is somewhat creative and somewhat art related, I suppose, is I like to watch specifically baseball, but it works with any sport. I like to watch baseball on mute while music is playing. And there's just something so poetic about baseball in general, which I've talked about with numerous guests and on the show many times. But listening to the right music, pairing it just right, kind of adds an air of extra drama to the game, even when you have amazing games like we've had in the World Series so far. So I highly recommend it. Even if you're not a baseball fan, just put it on while you're listening to some music and see if it makes a difference for you. I'm reading a book that I'm crazy about. It's called A Gentleman in Moscow, and it's by Amor Towles. And it is so good, y'all. It is so good. It tells the story of an aristocrat in newly Bolshevik-controlled Russia who's sentenced to house arrest in a grand hotel, the Metropole, across from the Kremlin. And he is such a fascinating character. Everything about the situation we find him in is funny and heartbreaking. It's imaginative and mischievous. I am loving this book, and I can't recommend it enough. Y'all, I love you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting the show. We have some great guests coming up and some great things already recorded that I can't wait for y'all to hear. And so stay tuned. Thank you for your patience. I had to take a little bit of a break because I've been busy, y'all, in the best ways, though. Everything is good, and I'm excited for what we have coming up for this show. Until next time, if you can swing it, if you're in the headspace, go out and create something. If not, don't beat yourself up about it. Cheers, y'all.